Tonight in Indiana, Damian Lillard and the Bucks trying to keep their season alive. He would return after missing the last two games. Giannis never made it back into this postseason. Lillard would play well early on. He would score 28 points, but it was late in the first quarter and then throughout that Tyrese Halliburton, Jay, and the Pacers just took control.
I mean, look, this is a team that dominated them with fast break points. That's how Indiana plays. Tyrese Halliburton, a superstar in this league, 17, 10, and 6 rebounds. There's a reason why Indiana won this game. They also got 50 points off the bench, Greeny.
TJ McConnell, he was in his bag this game. Look at that finish.
That's Halliburton there, They were up 12 at the half, and then here comes TJ McConnell, who would score 20.
He's been great off the bench. He's really developed into a fantastic backup point guard. They love him there.
And so it ends for the Bucks last night, and it ends badly. Watch Pat Beverly there, throws the ball at a fan, then watch this here. He's asking for it back, and then watch this. Now that's just not okay. We'll see what the league has to say about it. One would assume they're going to say a lot. In the meantime, the series comes to an end. The Pacers go on, and Doc talks about playing without either of his stars.
It's hard to do, man. Take Jokic and Murray away. Go to each team and take their two best players away. It's going to be hard. Every single guy in that locker room thought, even without those guys, we're still going to win this series.
It was a roller coaster of a year. But I think for me personally, it was a year of growth more than anything. It's been some hard times, basketball and personally, it's been some hard times, but it's never been a issue with Milwaukee.
Okay, so now we dive into this. The Pacers go on to play the Knicks. That series starts Monday. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. The Bucks season, which never really got in gear, comes to an unceremonious end. So, Wendy, it feels to me like we're talking about three different people in ascending order of importance: Doc, Lillard, and Giannis. What should we expect?
Yeah, well, they lost the series because those guys were injured, but that doesn't clear the fact that their season was a big disappointment. And the big challenge for them is they've pretty much exhausted all of their assets. They are capped out. They have traded away all their draft picks pretty much, and they don't have much on their top star players that has a lot of value where they could actually improve by trading. So I think Dame is committed to being there. Doc, I think changing the coach again doesn't make any sense. I think you want to hear from Giannis. We haven't heard from Giannis in almost a month because he's had this injury. Giannis' comments and his feel on where this team is are going to be very important. He just signed a long-term contract extension before the start of the year. He committed himself to Milwaukee. But you want to hear about where he thinks about the direction of the franchise, because this team doesn't have the ability to improve defensively through free agency or really through trade. They're going to have to figure out a way with minimum players and stuff, and that's not it's not appetizing. I don't see a clean path, especially with Philly and New York strong and very upwardly mobile in the East.
So, Chiney, the question feels like this to me. The Bucks were a team that was supposed to be the biggest threat to the Celtics in the East, and it never materialized. If they run it back and those guys still live in a world where they are healthy, are they going to be that next year? Will this Milwaukee team, in your mind, next year be a legitimate championship contender?
They will have to figure out how to get more from less. And I'm talking about less, meaning guys not named Dame and Giannis and also Chris Middleton. You have to commend Chris Middleton for how he showed up in this series. But the truth is that health was not on their side with their star players, even though they thugged it out. Will they be a championship contender? When you brought those two players in Dame and Giannis together, that was the expectation. But what we have also realized in the NBA these days is that one or even two stars are not enough. You need a whole group, a whole team effort, even if those stars are Giannis and Dame. I believe that they'll have a better, I guess you can say, if those guys are available. I believe they only played 52 games, that duo, this season. I believe that they can really make a run and push the Celtics, but the Celtics are stacked from top to bottom. So it's going to be a tall task. They have to fix their defense. They have to be able to get more shooting from perimeter guys. They miss guys like Grayson Allen, who led the league in three-point percentage. Those tweaks on the supporting cast are the reason why teams are championship teams. They have to find it.
Now, we'll see what they wind up doing. Two other things I think we need a comment on. Jay, Will, you played in the league. We saw what happened with Pat Beverly there at the end. We know he's an emotional player. We understand that's part of what has, made him a significant player in the NBA for a long time. That it goes without saying, this is way beyond the pale. We'll show it again here as he, in frustration, throws the ball at the fan. And then again, the first one is bad enough. This is just overwhelmingly inexcusable. What are the right things to say here?
I love Pat Beverly as a person. I think it was a bonehead decision. It was a really dumb decision. And there's no need to engage with the fan base while you're getting beat up like that at all. And then what he did to the reporter literally in the locker room was kind of disgraceful. Like, just be classy, take the loss, take the trash talk, hold yourself to a higher standard.
Yeah, it was
embarrassing. It was embarrassing for the team and for Pat Beverly.
A bad look for sure. And what did you say, Stick? I'm sorry, my producer said something to me. No, okay, fine. We just lost Sinead to the electronics, but we'll get back to it. Let me get a final thought here. Or a first thought, I should say, on Knicks Pacers. So the Pacers advanced through this. Now, for those of us who are old enough to remember, Knicks Pacers was a genuinely great rivalry in the late 90s. People talk about, you remember the Reggie Miller, you remember the 4-point play. There were all this, it brings back so many memories. Knicks will go in pretty significantly favored.
We'll see. And during the regular season, the Knicks had a hard time with
they are significant favorites, I believe. I believe what I was told this morning was the Knicks. I don't want to misquote
series?
It. We'll get it. Okay. Yeah, the odds there by ESPN Bet, 62% chance to win is that game one. Here are the odds. They're minus 270 to win the series. That is Alan, that's a significant favor.
I would not overlook the Pacers' depth right now and their ability to score off the bench. Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell went for 20 last night, each off the bench. They put up 50. They can score a lot. And we were just talking about Jalen Brunson is your one main scorer. Who else is going to make up that scoring? The Knicks defense has to be on point to keep the Pacers from doing their usual 120 points a game.
I'll slow down the pace of the game. You can control that with the tempo of your offense as well for the Knicks.
Physical series too, right, Jay?
Slow pace series for the Knicks, yes.
Yeah, we're going to get Orlando, Cleveland tonight. Winner of that will play Boston. Knicks, Pacers will start Monday. They'll go Monday.
Jalen Brunson's going to take a second to assess the court. Let that time go up. Okay, if that's going to be a high pick and roll, even if it goes to an ISO, you're not getting into your action until 17, 18 on the shot clock. Then you throw the double team at him. Then you scatter. But why double team off the top?
It was the sequence there again. It was tied, and so that it did look like a defense you might go to if you were trailing in that moment. Right. The game is tied. A little later, we'll also analyze the last play Philadelphia ran, because that one I thought made even less sense. All of that said, Tyrese Maxey becomes a huge part of the story here. His heroics in Game 5 now, I'm not going to say they're forgotten, but certainly they don't live forever in the way they would have if the Sixers had come back to win. He struggled last night, scoring just 17 points. For the series, he was phenomenal. Averaged just under 30. Unfortunately, again, on the closeout game, 6 of 18 from the floor, and 1 of 6 from behind the arc. So there are two stars in Philadelphia. Let's start with Joel Embiid. It's an expression that I like because I love Batman, which was yesterday's topic. But Wendy, as they said in The Dark Knight, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. How do we assess Joel Embiid gutting it out like crazy for his team, coming back with the meniscus when no one would have blinked if he hadn't come back this season, dragging his leg up and down the floor, playing with the Bell's palsy, playing with the migraine and everything else, and yet I feel like so much negativity heaped upon him. What are the right things to say about Embiid today?
Yeah, so what's the issue is the Sixers have yet again failed to advance to the conference finals, which they haven't in literally decades, and they haven't been able to do for Embiid's career. But yet again, it's due to injuries. Embiid has gotten hurt in the postseason year after year. This year, he got hurt at midseason. The reason this was such an incredible series because it wasn't a first-round series. This talent level of these two teams was more appropriate of a second or a conference finals, and they were a 7 seed because of Embiid's injury. So that is an unfortunate reality. This is not an upset loss whatsoever. The 76ers, they lost to an excellent team that they probably shouldn't have had to play in the first round, but this is what it is with Embiid. And so I think if anything else, the one thing you take away from the season if you're the Sixers, at the start, you didn't know what was going to happen with James Harden. You didn't know how you were going to replace him. Well, you replaced him with a player much younger and much more dynamic in Tyrese Maxey. And going forward, you know who your two cornerstones are, and you can build around that.
All right, before I get to the Sixers outlook here, let me get to Chiney on Embiid. because he's one of the NBA's great stars. And again, it was a confounding series to try and put into perspective. What do you want to say about Embiid this morning, Chiney?
Look, the only reason I see based off of this season that people can portray him as a villain is maybe some of those not cute plays that happened in this series, those fouls. Some people said borderline a little bit dirty, right? He said he had to protect himself. But other than that, if you remove that, we saw Joel Embiid do everything with the exception of, his availability late in the season that he possibly could to muster together the fabric, the foundation of a championship squad. He showed up when it mattered most. In the season, he had more points than minutes played. And then on top of it, we found a running mate in Tyrese Maxey, whom I voted as most improved, who has emerged as an all-star and, as you mentioned, a cornerstone. It's looking good in Philly. Now, the biggest question is, how are you going to take pressure off of Joel Embiid? Because he can play through it, but he should not have to. That means you need to bring in another great player that complements the talents of Embiid and Maxey. That also means that you have to make sure that Joel Embiid doesn't feel like he has to put on these Herculean efforts overall with his body physically for them to be successful, because the most important goal is getting him to the finish line. If he gets there, we all know we're seeing a powerhouse team in the making.
Yeah, Hembo, can you put that pop back up there one more time? I think it's significant enough that I always worry people don't read them. For whatever it is he didn't do in this series, I mean, look at the plus minus. They were minus 47 in the 45 minutes he was on the bench. They went from being the better team in this series to by far worse when he wasn't on the floor. So, Alan, whatever it is he didn't do, his presence was incredibly significant.
On one leg, he was unguardable. I mean, they were throwing all kinds of bodies at him. He was absolutely unguardable in the paint. What I loved what they did in this game was they put him back on the post, and they were just clearing out, letting him play old school post-up basketball. He was unstoppable. And so it is exactly what Chiney just said, is getting him to the finish line has been the hardest thing for this team, because even when he has had healthy seasons, by the time he gets to the second round, it always looks like he's running out of gas. He doesn't have anything left, or he breaks his face, he hurts his knee, whatever it is, something always goes wrong.
Guys, I know we're talking a lot about Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Joel Embiid is your cornerstone franchise player.
Right.
Tyrese Maxey is your rising star, is going to be a franchise player. Can we be honest about this? Tobias Harris, who is the third star, who averaged 18 points per game throughout the regular season, had a donut in this game. He's been averaging 9 points per game throughout the entire playoff series on 27% shooting from the three-point line. Your third best player needs to give you something in the game 6 when you need him to give you something the most.
He doesn't get any shots.
Let's be honest in that. We're being honest about
But Jay,
that.
he doesn't get shots.
He got two.
Doesn't get shots.
He got 2 field goal attempts.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think. Well, let's put it this way. I think there were a lot of Sixers fans who are going to be very happy to see that contract expire, which it now does, and that leads us to our next point.
You need to go get your guy in Cali.
Wizzy, take us through it. Bobby Marks tweeted that this is the most significant offseason in Sixers history, and there are a variety of reasons why. They got tradable draft picks. They've got almost $60 million in cap space.
Come on, Paul George. Come on, Paul George.